Please be seated. So, welcome to today's member forum meeting. Very quickly, safety information. If we do have an alarm, please leave the building by the nearest exit and congregate by the cathedral. Rules are as always, but just to remind members, you can ask a maximum of 2 questions at member forum, not 3. So always be careful when you're formulating your questions. Thank you very much. So let's go on straight ahead then to green question 1 from Councillor Fraser, who's here. Councillor Fraser, you've got 2 supplementaries for Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Williams, for your answers. So I can see from the answers that the list of public toilets that were closed by the Labour administration in 2018 hasn't been included. But thankfully, I have been able to obtain that list thanks to a Freedom of Information request last year from a member of Acorn. So could I verify, would reopening the following public toilets, deep breath, Colston Avenue, St James Barton, Castle Park, Greystoke Avenue, Shirehampton Road, Westbury Village High Street, Fishponds Park, Cowmead Walk, Clifton Suspension Bridge, Greville Smythe Park, St George's Park, Bridgewater Road, East Street and Muller Road Junction in my own ward of Eastville cost significantly more than £1 million in capital and £319,000 in revenue per year, as the Labour group appeared to claim at the budget meeting a fortnight ago.
Lord Mayor, thank my colleague on the committee, Councillor Fraser, for his supplementaries, and I apologise for the fact that the list hasn't been provided, which is in his question, and I'll make sure that he has that. We'll try and get that ready for our normal committee on Friday. The answer to his question, there were so many toilets that he listed. There are 30 that were closed, Lord Mayor, by the previous administration, that it would be quite difficult to quantify the actual cost of reopening all of the ones he listed, and I think some of the ones that he omitted. And maybe the Labour group could tell us how they costed their amendment, which was supposedly going to achieve that.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Williams. And so in the answer to one of your questions, you said that the Council would need to undertake a new study to assess the feasibility of reopening public toilets. So I'd like to ask if you would commit today to a study to assess the feasibility of not just reopening public toilets, but also introducing new ones in areas of major public development, as is policy in the current local plan.
Tempting as it is, because he's a good committee member, to say yes, I don't think I can, because once a toilet is closed, it becomes part of the council's property portfolio, and I think it would be the leader of the council, or perhaps Councillor Mack, Deputy Leader of the Council, who deals with property disposals for us, to consider that item. So maybe he'd like to come back again with that question. I think it's a good one, but I can't make the commitment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Williams. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
So Labour question 1 on the A38. Councillor Round, you've got 1 supplementary for Councillor Plowden, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Plowden, for the initial answer. Residents are going to be very disappointed that this stretch of road has had the money taken away from it for what had been allocated for resurfacing. So I think my follow-up question is, when is that road going to get sorted out before it gets even worse?
Thanks for the question, Tom, and thanks for the acknowledgement. The team have been working with the gas people, and we don't really want to go and resurface it and then see it dug up again. No one wants that. But obviously, if it was going to be years and years, then we would get on and do it. They've actually established that at the moment, it looks like it will happen in the year 25-26, so the next financial year. The team will then will continue to press the gas company for a date. We believe it's been close to being done on the gas programme in the next. If it's not going to happen in the next couple of years and we get confirmation of that, we'll go ahead and do it anyway. I do think it's worth mentioning that the team are ensuring the junction is safe and that we're meeting our statutory duties. While we appreciate this is not the ideal situation, we don't really want to do the job twice.
Lib Dem question 1 on bin collections. Councillor Class, you've got 1 supplementary for Councillor Fodor.
Thank you. Just to say thank you very much for the response that's come through, and I'm glad to see those actions, and hopefully they do have an impact. Could I just ask, obviously this is something that is really affecting our residents. Do we have a sort of timeline or some sort of at least goals of when we expect to see real improvements to the current system and that service that we're providing?
Yes, thanks very much. In fact, each of the measures will have a different timeline, so I don't think I could come up with those for you. For instance, the enhanced maintenance regime for the narrow access vehicles has been brought into place and an additional vehicle was acquired. But maintenance is something you can't always predict. I'm just looking at the other points. The licensing of the baling facility. I'm not sure of the time for that, but I shall try and check and shall let you know any of the details that I can. And I'll share them with other members. Obviously, there's interest well beyond that yourself. Thank you.
Conservative question 1 on waste and recycling collection. Councillor West, you've got 2 supplementaries. For Councillor Parsons.
Yeah, thank you very much, my Lord Mayor. I appreciate the answers to the questions. Unfortunately, you didn't seem to answer the second question. So, at the end of the engagement exercise, to talk about waste and recycling, should the majority of responses received from various sources be for no change, will the Green-led administration respect the outcome? That doesn't seem to be in the responses. It's actually Councillor Fodor, I think it's going to, not us.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, yes.
Should have prepped.
I can't read in a straight line. Sorry, yes, that's for Councillor Fodor.
That's
Apologies.
right. We haven't swapped portfolios. There are so many questions and there are lots of different details to be analysed, to be frank. There's not one simple answer, yes, no. It's not a referendum. It's a range of views and perspectives from one end of the spectrum to the other for each question, as you'll have seen if you went through it. So we have to look at all of those and weigh them up, because the call for more recycling and the call for less frequent bins, for instance, has a connection, and vice versa. So there's no one yes, no, supported or not supported, because there are degrees of support for lots of actions that have been coming in from thousands and thousands of people, and we have to analyse those.
Okay, I think the answer there is no then. Okay, in that case, my Lord Mayor, I have no further supplementaries. That was eye-opening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next question is for Councillor Parsons, and that's Green question 2 on Bouverie Court from Councillor Jemfrey. Councillor Jay, I've either got 1 or 2 supplementaries.
Hopefully 1, presuming on what happens. Yeah, thank you for the response.
Well, just to say, Councillor Jeffrey, if you have 2 supplementaries, you won't be able to ask a supplementary on your next question.
Oh, yes,
Yep.
then 1 per question, thank you. Yes, thank you for the response. For people not following it, the residents of Bouverie Court are been told they'll have to leave by March 2026 because the building isn't safe. My question, Councillor Parsons, was about, I appreciate you're saying Home Choice are working with Elim Housing Association to register all the residents in the housing register, but I think a lot of residents will be concerned that this means they're going back to square one. A lot have waited several years already to get social housing. So can you expand a bit more on that? Will they be given priority banding? How is this going to happen, given that a council house is meant to be a council house for life?
Thank you very much for your questions, Councillor Jemfrey. This is obviously an extremely distressing situation for residents of Bouverie Court, and it affects me personally. Some of my child's school friends live in Bouverie Court, and so I do know how upsetting this news has been to residents, and especially I think the uncertainty that accompanied it at the beginning. So I'll talk a bit about the work that is ongoing, and I'll talk a bit about what this means for residents rehousing. So when we were made aware of this news, one of the first things that we did as an authority was to meet with Elim Housing Association, and what we've discussed with them is that it's right that as the housing provider, Elim are the first point of contact for their residents, for support and advice for their residents to make new housing applications or update their existing applications. Moving on from that, we are going to carry on having point of contact meetings with Elim, tracking their progress and making sure that we're tracking the housing outcomes for all residents who've been affected. We've stood up some additional support through our citizen service points so that we can support residents to make home choice applications. And our home choice manager is going to be attending their next residents meeting. So as far as rehousing goes, our current policy places all eligible tenants into band 1 for rehousing. So that is the highest priority banding that can be achieved. And so what Elim are doing at the moment is that they're meeting all of their tenants and making sure that they get full consent from them to support them to apply to home choice. Now, what I would say about rehousing is that even when residents have the highest possible banding, we are still in a housing crisis, and the supply of social homes in Bristol is still very constrained. So we want to make sure that that residents know that they're supported all along the way. There's also another caveat, which is that if there are any residents at Bouverie Court who are not tenants of the housing association, so any who are leaseholders, then the process would be somewhat different. We don't believe, we're not aware of anyone in Bouverie Court who's not a tenant, though. It's as I said, a desperately upsetting situation, but we are doing absolutely everything that we can to support residents, and we're arranging for you and Councillor Mohammed to meet with our housing options team and with Elim, so you can make sure that you're supporting your residents as well as you can. Thank you.
Labour question 2 on missed collections. That's from Councillor Self for Councillor Fodor. 1 supplementary, Councillor Self.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you for your response, Martin. Can you reassure me that there will be an improvement in the reliability of collections, specifically for those roads that seem to lose out in the postcode lottery of bin collections, not just in my ward, but in many wards in the city?
Thank you for that. Yes, we're pressing constantly for any regularly missed streets to be tackled, because we don't want them to be missed even more than once. I'm delighted to say, as of today, a single missed cardboard round is the only thing listed for yesterday's collections by Bristol Waste. Oh, sorry, for earlier today's collections by Bristol Waste. It is improving, but we continue to have to chase. And if there are any specific streets, I'm also always passing those on to see that the client makes sure the contractor doesn't miss them again, if at all possible. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, breakdowns and things can occur, but we're trying to avoid that.
Lib Dem question 2 on employers' national insurance contributions. Councillor Gooch, got 1 question for Councillor Dyer, please.
Yes, thank you for your response. I just wanted to say that we will come back to this, as we need to understand the impact also on our outsourced children's services, contracted building services, roadworks, street cleansing, so on and so forth. Every single service that we as a council buy in, we will be paying more because of the national insurance contribution rise for employers. It's a stealth tax.
Councillor Gooch, is that a question or a statement?
Yes. So I was just going to ask, will we be able to, at some point, get a figure for what this is actually costing us and what we need to find, extra we need to find?
Thank you, Councillor Goots. We will get a better idea of how the impact has played out. as I mentioned in my written answer, we have put 9.3 million into the 25-26 budget to try and mitigate the impact of national insurance contribution rises. We also need to recognise the impact of living wage changes as well. And I think we should also be aware that there are very good reasons for why these rises should be happening. Where the problem and the difficulty comes is where they're not covered completely by government at this time. How that will impact on our adult social care packages, for instance, that will come out after we go into negotiations with new packages and new deals.
Okay, Conservative question 2 on road maintenance. That's Councillor Glandridge. You've got one supplementary for Councillor Plowden, please.
I think possibly 2, but I only need 1. There's 2 questions. Thanks, Lord Mayor. On the white lines, thank you very much for the answer, and I'm looking forward to gleaming white lines on Julian Road and other roads. So thank you for that. On the tarmac, on the pothole repairs, now we talk about permanent repairs. They typically last about 14 months. It's just outside the warranty period. So my supplementary question is, do you think it might be possible to negotiate a longer guarantee period with the contractors of 2 years? Because if their work is good, then surely they'll be happy to guarantee it for perhaps 2 years?
I'll look into that. We've just negotiated a new contract, so you may have come in a few weeks too late, but I think it's a fair point. I do think, actually, when you look at, when you compare us with other authorities, that we are in line with national best practice, and we've been found to be good value for money and performing well against the national average. So I do think, though, if you're going to do a job, then you get it right first time.
Thank you. Green question 3 on bike hangers. Councillor Crawford, you've got 2 supplementaries for Councillor Plowden.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thanks, Ed, for your responses. It's great to see such incredible demand for these hangers, to be honest. My question is, there were a lot of kind of resident-suggested sites that were unsuccessful in this round. I was just wondering, is the information of the suggested sites being retained for future schemes?
We've had a bit of a problem with this in that we had a long-standing way of suggesting bike hangers, and WECA insisted on putting in their own way of doing that. So our residents across Bristol responded really well to that, and we'll be working with WECA to make sure that when we roll out future phases, that they're based on information we hold, as well as any new information we can feed them.
Okay, great, thanks.
Labour question 3 on Nicholas Wanderers FC. Councillor Breckles, you've got 2 supplementaries for Councillor Dyer.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your answer. I'm disappointed that the team was disbanded before their job was complete, or that a simple lease could take so long. My understanding is that the process is that Parks need to instruct Property Services to instruct a legal team to proceed with the lease. That's the bit that hasn't happened. However, Nicholas Wanderers need to extend the pavilion, and this will require planning permission, but what they've been getting is conflicting advice as to whether they should do this before or after a new lease is granted. Given the lease concerns the buildings already on site, it's my belief that requiring them to get planning permission for any extensions before a lease is granted will only add to the delays they've already suffered for a number of years. So can you please ensure that they will not be required to submit a planning application before the lease or asset transfer is granted, and that you will therefore be able to instruct Parks, to instruct Property Services, to instruct the legal team to get on with it?
I'm happy to do so, Fabian, and I'll actually involve you in that conversation as well, so you know what's happening at front end.
My second one is, I understand the next property working group session is looking at community asset transfers. So can we ensure that providing clear, error-free guidance to applicants, as well as speeding up the process, is addressed and lessons learned so nobody's ever put this through this kind of slow process again?
Yes, and that's part of the reason why that group was set up, is because there had been some concerns raised about how community asset transfers had been done in the past. So that's part of the process of that. Thank you.
Okay, and I'd like the answers in writing, but you're going to include them. Yeah.
Thank you. Lib Dem question 3 on residents' parking scheme. Councillor Wins, you've got 1 supplementary for Councillor Plowden.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Thank you to Ed for the answer. I hope I'm interpreting over the next few months to mean that by June the committee will have the Transport Committee will have some proposals in front of it. But my supplementary is, will he undertake not to introduce parking charges either in Westbury Hill car park or around the Downs, which has been proposed, until it has been decided whether there is a proven need for a residence parking scheme, particularly in Westbury Park and Henleys, and maybe Snay Park as well, because the other side of the Downs in Clifton and Redland Ward, they are already protected by residence parking. So all the displaced parking from people trying to avoid charges around the Downs would go into our ward or Stoke Bishop Ward.
I can't really stand here and make that commitment because, as you may have seen, we had, I think, the first time we took any parking charges to the committee, we ended up with 17 different votes. Multiple amendments to the proposals, and because it's a very contentious issue, the other parties voted down some of the proposals I brought forward. So I think I will just be having to take this a stage at a time and a step at a time.
Okay, let's move on to Conservative question 3 on the Park Street bus gate. Councillor Hucker, you've got 2 supplementaries. Councillor Plowden.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, just one supplementary, please, Ed. Thanks for your response. I'm surprised that in the response it says that first bus report that delays on Park Street have increased peak time journeys by an extra 10 minutes. When I travel up Park Street at peak times, it's normally fairly sort of clear. Is it possible to share the source data for that statement with me, please?
What I'll have to do is I'll have to agree that with first, because they can be quite protected for their data for understandable commercial reasons. I think what we do need to remember is that, as it says in the Bristol Transport Strategy, that due to the growth in housing and jobs planned in Bristol, we would need to reduce the percentage of people commuting by car, which was 53% in 2019, to 43% in 2036, just to maintain traffic at its current level. So I do get worried when the people are sort of opposing something when there's no real, genuine alternative options. We know that, I think since 2006, First Bus tell me that they've had to put 50% on average into their timetables in order to maintain the same service. So we're seeing congestion costing our bus service more and more. We're seeing congestion. In 2013, it cost our regional economy £300 million per annum. That's only gone upwards because congestion has got worse. And I think it's really important that we get on top of congestion, which is costing our economy. And one of the best ways of doing that is encouraging people to get onto the bus. But yes, we will have a look and see if we can share that data with you. You have got another supplementary, I believe, if you want it.
I don't need to use another supplementary. Thank you for your response.
Thank you very much. Green question 4 on NDAs. Councillor Freeman, you've got 2 supplementaries for Councillor Dyer.
Thank you, and thank you for your response on this. Yeah, 2 questions which I don't expect you to have the information to hand. It'd be good to know how we compare as a council to other councils of a similar size in terms of the numbers of NDAs that we issue. So I leave that for you to come back to me. Great. And I know it says that any more detailed analysis would risk identifying individuals. Would it be possible to break it down by department, or would that still bring that issue forward?
If we're looking at a situation where only 2 NDAs, if we break it down to department, that would make it very easy to identify individuals. But we can look at a way of anomalising the data in some way. And also, yeah, happy to look at how we compare with other councils. I don't expect we're that much different from most other local authorities. There is sometimes very good reasons for why NDAs are used.
Labour question 4 on trolley parks. Councillor Tate, you've got 2 supplementaries for Councillor Dyer.
Sorry.
Thank you for your responses and for outlining the current commitments of the environmental impact bid. I appreciate the consideration given to the potential for trolley parks on HRA land, but could you confirm the total EIB budget for 2024-25, not just the committed amount? And will the council commit to working with local supermarkets and community to explore funding solutions for the trolley parks? And then additionally, would the leader of relevant cabinet members agree to watch the film created by the young people in BS13? Because I couldn't share the link. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Tate. To be honest, I had assumed that the budget number given was for funding, but I'll find out for you just to confirm that. And yes, in response to your other question, I'm happy to watch the film and happy to get involved with individuals from BS13, which, as you know, is somewhere that's quite close to my heart as well.
Thank you for that.
Lovely. Councillor Coombs isn't here, so we'll move on to Conservative question 4 on the Park Street bus gate. And that's Councillor Ed. You've got 2 supplementaries for Councillor Plowden, please.
Firstly, can I thank Councillor Plowden for his detailed response. 2 questions. 1, can he outline briefly the so-called suboptimal options considered?
In short, I haven't really been looking at this for long enough to be able to answer that question directly. I do think it's worth saying, when you ask how this, well, are you going to go on to how successful failure will be measured? No. Okay. Well, I'm going to say something anyway. I'm going to say something anyway.
Never predict what Councillor Eddie might say.
I'm assuming that you weren't a councillor in 1977. In fact, I know you weren't. But did you know that when Broadmead was pedestrianised, the turnover went up by 17% in 1 year? That's the biggest ever rise in Broadmead because of pedestrianisation. Queen Square used to have, I think, had become a councillor when Queen Square was pedestrianised. You used to have 20,000 cars a day. There was an outcry, probably including from yourself, councillor, about how this was going to ruin the city. But actually, I don't think many people want to put it back. We had 30% vacancies in Queen Square before 1992, and we had 0 vacancies in Queen Square after 2000. So I think when we're looking at the success of these schemes, property values in Queen Square increased by over 16% above the average rate of inflation. We know that an improved urban realm boosts the local economy, according to the Department of Transport, by 5 to 15%, as well as resulting in improved personal safety and overall health. What I think you're going to see when the papers are published tomorrow or the day after is this has been assessed by experts. I know that the Tory party sometimes has rejected experts as having benefit cost ratio of, for every £1 invested in this scheme, there will be £7.60 return on investment. Now, I think, given that is a government grant, albeit taxpayers, but free to Bristol, I think it would be slightly perverse not to proceed with this scheme if for every £1 we're going to get a £7.60 return on that investment. And part of that calculation involves the improved amenity value, i.e. the reduced road space and the increased space for people walking, because it's people that visit shops, not cars.
In fact, my second question does feature somewhat by the actual, the success or otherwise, or actually your scheme. My question is, does the adverse economic impact admittedly claimed feature as highly in the monitoring assessment as catering for cyclists and pedestrians?
I think it's very difficult to actually look at individual businesses and whether or not they've been affected, but we will certainly be looking at the overall situation in terms of businesses on Park Street. And it's, if you look at the economic assessment, there are some downsides in terms of journey times for cars, but there's so many upsides in terms of the transport benefits for public transport, but also it's assumed that actually there'll be something like 400 extra jobs as a result of this. We know that in the sorts of work that happens when this happened in New York, there were 49% fewer commercial vacancies on Union Square. On 8th and 9th Avenues, the first ever protected bike lanes in the US, retail sales went up by up to 49%. In the Bronx, bus lanes, for the first time again in New York, were introduced, and they increased speed of buses by 80%, 10% increase in patronage, and 71% increase in retail sales at local frontages, compared with 22% across the rest of the borough. So what we're actually talking about here is something that the experts have looked at and said that is going to be extremely good for gross value added in terms of the immediate local economy and the wider Bristol economy. So we certainly will be looking at monitoring and evaluation plan as to whether or not those benefits are realised. But I think we really need to be looking at this in terms of really good value for Bristol, that we're getting £7.60 return estimated on every pound invested.
Green question 5 on community rooms. Councillor Jemfrey, you've got one supplementary for Councillor Parsons.
Yeah, thank you. This is really exciting news that the community rooms may now be available for booking by residents, because it's something residents in the tower blocks have been asking for years. Could you clarify a bit more about how the proposals were drafted, and also if it's going to be completed by the end of March, when might it realistically start being available for residents, and how does the governance decision pathway, what does that look like to a layman?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you very much, Councillor Jemfrey, for your question. So community rooms are a fantastic resource for local people, especially people who live in blocks who don't have sort of good access to outdoor space or to other kinds of community space sometimes. So it was actually prompted by residents of Lawrence Hill Ward coming to me to ask about their community rooms. That I asked the service to look into what we could do to improve access, because at the moment access to community rooms is really dependent on the availability of caretakers to open and lock up. And so what the service has done is they've gone away and they've worked with the community development team to look at what other kinds of access arrangements we might be able to put together. And really this is looking at finding ways for trusted community members to have a key to be able to open up and lock up, and for there to be really an agreement, a sort of set of terms of reference that users of the rooms sign up to, so we can make sure that we avoid some of the issues that we've had in the past with users of the community rooms, causing issues with some other residents sometimes. And so we think that we're getting to a really good place with that, and we've got a draft of a proposal which is going to be coming to me initially as part of my regular chair's briefing, and then from there we'll be moving on down the government's pathway, and we're aiming to get that all done and dusted this calendar year. So hopefully within the next few weeks and months, residents should find that they've got much better opportunities to access these really valuable resources. And really looking forward to that for residents in Lawrence Hill and other wards in the city. So thank you.
Labour question 5 on the housing crisis. Councillor Collar, you've got one supplementary for Councillor Parsons, please.
Thanks for the response. It pretty much matched what I found on Google. With regards to the answers that I was given, my question was really about young people, youth. And I didn't feel that was actually answered in regards to how we can support our young people. £30,000, I don't know many 18-year-olds that are earning £30,000 plus. As a guarantor, I don't earn £36,000. I'm not sure many other adults and parents do either. I know that the council do the 6 months free rent, but that doesn't always support them into actual housing. It's really, really difficult in Bristol at the moment to rent privately.
Councillor Collar, could you quickly come to your question, please?
So I just want to know what exactly is there that we could be doing more for our youth, not just sort of general people.
Thank you very much, Councillor Collar. And I think this is a, really, really critical issue that you're highlighting here. I think the affordability of homes, especially for young people in our city, is a huge and growing problem for Bristol. And I think the reality is that as the response indicates, we don't have huge numbers of levers to pull as a local authority at the moment. So you know, if there are young people that you're advising, or if there are young people who are listening to this now, then you know, the advice that we would give to people is first of all really sort of about things like shopping around in the market and making sure that you're you know, using all the means that you can to try and find an affordable home for yourself. There are rent guarantee services which are available online. Obviously, it's not something as a commercial service. It's not something, you know, that we can recommend as a council. That wouldn't be right. At the moment, although we think that's going to change with the passage of the Renters' Reform Bill, Renters' Rights Bill, that there are landlords that will accept tenants on lower incomes if they provide rent in advance for, you know, up to 6 months. As we say, we think that's something that's not going to be available once the Renters' Rights Bill passes. And something else that I'd really recommend to young people is making sure that you're accessing all the benefits that you're entitled to. But really our sort of specialist support at the moment for young people is very much focused on young people who are at risk of homelessness, and for that we have our pathways which we can support people through, and there is advice available through our partner agencies as well. I particularly would like to draw people's attention to the private renting guide that we've recently published. That's got a lot of really good advice in it. Finally, though, I think one thing that would really change the game is something that this council has had a long history of supporting, which is the ability of local authorities to introduce rent controls. That's a power that's not currently devolved to local authorities. We can't do that. And it's not something that either the previous Conservative government or the current Labour government has been willing to countenance. So I think this is something that we've got the opportunity, I think, to come together and to really sort of campaign for the government to recognise the special circumstances of a city like Bristol, where the discrepancy between rents and incomes is so great, and really sort of pressure them to devolve to us the power that we need to be able to bring about an affordable private rented market.
Thank you. I'll now jump to Labour question 6 on Lanercost Road, van dwellers. Councillor South, you've got one supplementary for Councillor Parsons again.
Thank you, Councillor Parsons, for your reply. I was made aware of the unauthorised encampment just off Lanercost Road in January this year. You mentioned November in your reply, so I find it really disappointing I was the last to be informed of what's going on in my ward. Local residents have told us the council encouraged them to move from Lockleys to Southmead. Whether that is true, I remain open-minded. And the Lanercost site was earmarked for much-needed housing in the HRI pipeline, which has since been removed. I had an email from an officer which said, it says this: I instructed an access gate to be installed on the site at Landing Cost in order for the site to be assessed, appraised for meanwhile use. And that contradicts your response. So my question to you is this: will you ensure the action currently underway is expedited as quickly as possible? Because in an email sent to my colleague Kai Dudd on 6th of March by the GRT team, it said the legal process with dealing with unauthorised encampments on council land is for GRT officers to visit the occupants, to serve trespass notices and carry out welfare inquiries. I do not understand why it's taken them so long.
Thank you, Councillor Self. Absolutely, I'll get onto the team immediately, and I'll make sure that they're expediting the actions that we need to do to ensure that we have that site clear as we need it to be. Thank you very much.
Okay, Lib Dem question 6 on Bristol Hill Planters. Councillor Clark, you've got one supplementary for Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you. Slightly embarrassing, of course, looks this way to you. Thank you very much for the response. Really, my question to you is, it's taken an awful long time. Councillor Varney and I have had to spend a lot of time trying to find out what's going on about getting these planters. Is there anything that can be done within the council to speed up and enhance the communication between officers and councillors? Thank you.
Oh, well, there's a question. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think we all, as councillors, know the frustration sometimes of dealing with what's a large and complex organisation with multiple departments and resource issues. And you know, I know from other queries that I've had how difficult that can be at times. So I think it's a challenge to officers, and I note that there are senior officers here. It's a challenge to senior officers and to the administration to work with our officers to ensure that, you know, questions from councillors particularly, but also members of the public, can be responded to adequately and in good time, and to speed up some of those internal processes that see projects sometimes taking longer than on the face of it they really need to complete.
Labour question 7 on clothing banks fly tipping. Councillor Renard, you've got one supplementary for Councillor Fodor, please. Thank you very much. So let's move on to Lib Dem question 7 on cycle hangers. That's from Councillor Clark for Councillor Plowden. One supplementary, please.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I feel like I got in a little bit late because our new councillor for Southville, I think you've just changed to now, haven't you? You've gone across the water.
I'm delighted. I get 2 wards now.
Yeah, you've gone across the water. You've come to the sunny side of the city. So obviously we're both interested in the installation of the new cycle hangers. Thank you very much for the response, because it's really interesting to see the data on the take-up of these. It would be really interesting to find out about next phases, whether it's coming from the council, whether it's coming from WECA. Do we have any timelines?
Short answer, no. We want to put these in. We hope to be able to put some in through livable neighbourhood funding. But at the moment, I think we all know that WECA is in a bit of a hiatus, and we're entering the pre-election period, I think, in a week tomorrow. So I think probably not many decisions will be taken until we get to the other side of May.
Labour question 8, land by Shetland Road. Councillor Dudge, you've got one supplementary for Councillor Dyer, please.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned with this one, because I've not come across this issue before, of a private individual trying to claim land that doesn't belong to anybody. So thanks for the response. I just need some help with this one, really. So I don't know if there's anybody in the legal team or the property team that can assist me with the actions that you've outlined that I should try to follow.
Yeah, no problem, Kai. In fact, this isn't the only place in Bristol that looks like this is happening, and we have a similar incident in the south of the city. So I don't know whether we suddenly have an influx of people claiming land for themselves. I think I will get the legal team to talk to you. One of the things is that one of the routes to be taken will be a compulsory purchase order approach. Obviously, that tends to take a long time. However, at a recent council housing event in Sheffield, the Housing Minister, Matthew Pennicutt, pre-announced that there are going to be changes made to compulsory purchase orders to make it easier for councillors to proceed that route. So it might be an easier option than it is at the moment. But I'll get the legal team to sit down with you and I'll give you some advice. They'll probably tell you the same thing that we've been looking at for the other site as well. So don't get your hopes up, unfortunately.
Thank you very much. So Labour question 9 on Luckwell Road. Councillor Clark, you've got one subbench for Councillor Plowden, please.
Thank you. Thanks for your response, Ed. I understand from your response that this will be addressed through the South Bristol Liveable Neighbourhood Scheme. So I just really want to have your assurance that you think the junction will be addressed through that scheme. I guess because to my mind it feels like it needs a pretty major overhaul. So I'm not sure if that is something that would be dealt with by that scheme. So yeah, just some assurance from you, please.
I think, as we know, we heard just today, we were in a private briefing, everyone, that the designs are still forthcoming. There's definitely an intention to do something about that. I can't tell you exactly what it will look like at the moment.
Thank you. Is Councillor Durston here? No. Okay. So let's move on to Labour question 11 on the A4018, A4018, whatever you say. Councillor Dodd, that's one supplement for Councillor Plowden, please. Thank you very much. I just noticed Councillor Udin has come into the room. Councillor Udin, you had a question on Park Street Busgate. You're entitled to supplementaries for Councillor Plowden if you wish.
No supplementary.
Thank you very much indeed. So we've got time to move on to...
My Lord Mayor, could I just point out that Councillor Morris on the Conservative benches asked a question. As he is more than welcome to attend all the policy chairs' briefings, I just was somewhat surprised that he felt a need to ask a question when he could have perfectly well asked that of officers directly in a private forum to get the answer. So I'm just wondering if that's something that the Conservative Party was maybe an oversight or something that they intend to continue to do.
I'm sorry, is Councillor Plowden saying Councillor Morris is not allowed to ask questions in a public forum? He signed off on his questions. He's perfectly able to do that. If you don't like that, take it up with him. But this is democracy. You can't stop him asking questions because you don't like your vice chair asking you them.
I'm not trying to suggest he shouldn't be asking any questions, but I'm suggesting
well, that's exactly what you did intimate there, Ed.
Okay, Councillor Plowden, Councillor Plowden, please sit down. Thank you very much. I think we'll take this discussion offline, but I was very happy to accept questions from Councillor Morris. Thank you very much. So we'll now move on. We've got a little bit of time for statements. So the first statement is from Councillor Abdul Malik, which is cuts to Tel Mama and the rise of Islamophobia in Bristol. Councillor Malik, you've got 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'll keep it very brief. You have the statement before you. Members have probably seen it. So Tel Mama is a leading organisation that's tackling Islamophobia and has been doing so for many years. They provide toolkits and help to local communities. Personally, my own experience is that Bristol itself, our mosque, has been under some threats recently, and we've got security that's outside. So this is a real kind of tense time, and to withdraw the funding in the month of Ramadan is quite significant in terms of the message that it sends to the Muslim communities. And I just feel that Bristol has stood for justice recently. As we know, it's been united against the far right, and it's really important that we express our discontent at what's going on and with the withdrawal of that particular funding. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you very much, Councillor Malik. And now, Councillor Makawi, you have a statement on Islamophobia and hate crimes. 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would like to take this opportunity to warmly welcome the holy month of Ramadan and extend my best wishes to the Bristol Muslim communities, my Muslim colleagues here in the Council, and all those observing the sacred time. Ramadan is a month of reflection, compassion, and unity, values of strengthening our diverse city and bringing community together. Bristol takes pride in celebrating the rich culture and religious diversity of our people. However, we must also acknowledge the change we face: Islamophobia, the rise of the far right, and hate crime, whether against Muslim or any other communities, have no place in our city. We must stand firm against all form of hatred and division. I call on the Labour government.
Councillor Macari, you're out of time, I'm afraid, but we've all read your statement, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now if I can move on to Councillor McAllister on planning consultation and call-in deadlines. 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just further to my written statement, I just want to reiterate I'm very grateful and appreciative of the hard work of officers in reducing the planning backlog the administration inherited. And I also do appreciate that rules and deadlines are there for a reason. They do need respecting. But those rules and deadlines do have to be appropriate to the reality of the situation we are currently in, not the situation we would like to be in. In a situation where essential documentation will be added to a planning portal after the consultation deadlines, it's not workable. The cut-off for the public consultation and for councillor call-in should always be set for after when documentation has been uploaded. And if documentation is uploaded late, then the dates for consultation and call-in should be pushed back as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that concludes statements and also concludes the meeting. We'll reconvene at 6 o'clock for full council. Thank you very much, everybody.